In this video, we're going to explore some great knitting books that are for absolute beginners who just want to learn all of the basics and make sure they have all the skills they need. Books are a great way to learn these skills because they usually go in a graduated order, so you know that you're covering all those important skills that are necessary to be a successful knitter. We're going to look at my top recommendations today. Before we do, I just want to say, hey, I'm Tanya here at Nerdy Knitting. I'm a certified knitting instructor and a knitwear designer, and my goal is to help you become a more confident, adventurous knitter. And you can gain some of that knitting confidence by building those skills that you need to become a great knitter. So let's take a look at those knitting books that can help you improve your knitting skills. One of my top picks is the Fearless Knitting Workbook. Now, this is probably one of my top recommendations for people who want to learn all of the skills that they need to be really successful at their craft. There's one thing to note with this book. It actually doesn't show you how to work the knit stitch. So you really need to know the very basics before you can use this book, but it really starts from there. It will show you how to cast on and all of the other things that are important skills, but for some reason it left out how to actually perform those basic functions, the knit stitch and the purl stitch. But if you know how to do those, then this is a great resource for you. It covers everything that a new knitter needs with simple projects and swatches that teach the basics in small incremental steps. So if you've already learned the basics, you know how to knit and purl, then this book is still a great resource because it moves incrementally step by step through all of those different skills that you need to know, like how to read a knitting chart, how to read knitting patterns, all the different stitch patterns that knitters need to know. You'll learn them all in this book in really simple, easy to follow steps, and everything is clearly explained. It's divided into 6 sections. It will take you from the absolute basics to cables, lace, and knitting in the round. You'll have a solid knitting foundation after working through the projects and swatches in this book. Projects include pillow covers, scarves, and a hat, and it also has a really nice coil binding so it will stay flat while you're following along as you knit. So if you're looking for something that's a little more outside the box, this book is a great pick. How to Knit with 50 Squares. It's exactly what it says it is. You will knit 50 different squares, and each square will teach you a different technique. And it starts out with the basic knit stitch. Then after you tackle the knit stitch, the next square introduces the purl stitch. And then you have some squares that introduce increases and decreases. And then the squares really take off from there, and you'll work on lace, cables, texture, lots of different things. But it's a great book, and it's a really fun way to learn all of the important things you need to know about knitting. The book even has some recommendations for what to do with all of those squares after you've knit them, so you can have some fun projects done as well with those first things that you're learning how to knit. And each of the squares is laid out exactly the same way. There's a small introduction, full color photographs that walk you through all of the steps, and it even includes a knitting chart, so you can get used to reading knitting charts as well as following knitting instructions. My next recommendation is the Vogue Knitting Learn to Knit book. This is also a great incremental book that walks you through step by step. If you've ever seen any of the layouts in the other Vogue knitting books, then the layout is very similar in this one as well, with large full color photographs to display and depict how to do each step, something that's really helpful for new knitters. It has simple explanations, concise information and directions, so it's really a good introduction. Now it's divided into 5 sections covering the basic skills, stitch pattern section, finishing skills, plenty of knitting projects to practice those new skills. Now if you read through this book and use some of those recommended projects to practice these new skills, you'll be well on your way to becoming a good knitter. Another good Learn to Knit book is the You Will Be Able to Knit by the End of This Book by Rosie Fletcher. It has everything you need to know to get started, lots of good beginner projects, and clear instructions for many different knitting skills, accompanied by really great illustrations. The book's divided into 3 sections. The introductory section, that covers the basic tools, knitting notions, and then there's the stitch and technique library. That covers all of the basic skills every knitter needs. And then you'll find some projects so you can put those skills into good use. Now for the more practical people who want something that they can put to good use right away, these easy hand knit dishcloths. This book is a really great resource. It's thinner and it's smaller. It has less actual instruction, but if you know the very basics and you're ready to dive out and try different things, this is a great resource. It's a great way to build up your hand knit dishcloth collection as well. It's also a great way to use up some of that stash. If you have a stash and you'd like to get it pared down a little bit, uses about 150 yards of yarn for each of the dishcloths. And it includes 13 different dishcloths to practice new knitting skills. And it's filled with beautiful full color photographs of the finished projects. I would classify this book for the adventurous beginner. It's short on techniques and the projects are a step up from really simple. So those are my top picks for books for new knitters. If you've got a recommended resource for new knitters, I'd love to hear about it. Please leave me a comment down below. Tell me about the books you'd recommend for new knitters. And if you're looking for more recommendations, go down and check out those comments to see what other knitters have to say. And I'll see you in the next video.